So in March 2022, GreenEdge was given a contract to manage a research pilot to test separation and source AHP waste collection models in the township community of Samora Machel. And in the research, we were required to engage with the municipality as well as the community. I just want to have a little background here. I mean, basically, the manufacturers are worried about AHP coming in, and the cheapest way for them to manage their requirements is for the municipality to do most of the work. So, I mean, this is what I'm picking up, and quite rightfully so. They run businesses. However, our outreach, our outreach for collaboration with the Cape Town's Urban Waste Management Department was met with a categorical no, because the municipalities are not obliged to collect AHP material. They consider it general waste if it's commingled with municipal, with the household waste, or if it comes from non-infectious, unless it comes from infectious health facilities. So. And one reason why they are also a little bit reluctant to go to townships to collect waste is because of these sort of things. So we were about to implement, and the municipal refuse truck that did come in, well, it attempted to come in, it was held up by guys with guns wanting extortion money. So we just decamped to Longa and ran the collection pilot there. I think I'll skip the pilot, but I think you kind of know how it worked. We tested two models. One was a drop-off model where mothers were given pedal bins to hold the material in the homes, and then bags to take it to the ECD, which then became a hub for collections for the surrounding areas. There were 12 ECDs, 150 mothers. We also then had a second model which we tested, which was the pickups, which was street carts, which would go around and collect from the registered mothers, as well as any other mothers who wanted their material to be picked.
Sorry,
yes.
Sorry, Hugh.
Yes.
Sorry, I just wanted to check. You're still on your first introductory slide.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know if you've moved from there, but
I have.
Okay, so it hasn't moved.
Hasn't moved?
No, it's still on the first slide.
Oh, thanks. Okay. It says Teams, Microsoft is sharing a window. Stop sharing.
It's not in presentation mode, so I think that could be it as well.
Okay, thank you.
And before you start, do you mind if I quickly just do the welcome, because we did not get to that yet?
Of course.
Apologies.
Thanks, Amelia.
No, sure.
Okay. So while you get the presentation going on PowerPoint, I think I want to take a few minutes just to say thank you to everyone that attended, especially the municipalities that are in the room as well. And I want to extend a warm welcome, seeing that we are in a very rainy Cape Town and cold rainy Cape Town today. As you know, the meeting was intended to deal with the development of norms and standards for AHP waste. However, we will instead have a dialogue on the theme assisting municipalities to dispose of bulk volumes of AHP waste. Currently, I can only speak from Western Cape point of view now. Currently, AHP waste from households are considered general waste, as this is often mixed with other household waste at present. Hence, the stronger need for us to focus on collecting this specific waste type. Rural, informal, and backyard dwellers are often the most vulnerable, plagued by inefficient, irregular, and non-existent waste services, leading to huge volumes of waste being dumped, buried, or burnt. And that is why we would prefer having a discussion on the implementation of a collection system for bulk volumes of AHP waste and how we can assist municipalities in doing that. Also, we were supposed to have a presentation by our colleagues on the informal settlement guidelines specifically. Unfortunately, the document does not deal solely with AHP waste, but it does deal with the vulnerable groups that I just mentioned. And one or two key issues that came out of this guideline was that we need to have a general look at waste management in informal settlements, which is why we developed the guide. And it found that services generally are lacking and insufficient. And while weekly collections are conducted, at times it is insufficient, causing overfilled bins, and it causes AHPs to be dumped, as I said earlier. So you will present one form of a collection system that has been practiced recently. Thanks you.
Okay. Can you see the cart and the person?
We can see the card. It's not in presentation mode.
Yes, okay. It looks like I may have to just remain in presentation mode. Is it still visible? Otherwise, I've got to switch back, it looks like.
It's still visible.
Oh, that's good. Okay, well, let's just carry on like this then. So you can
Sure.
see so that was the second model. It generated 1.5 tons of material a week. And we then, because the senior management of the waste department was reluctant to deal with the material, we did meet them eventually. And they said, oh, look, yeah, fine, we'll get back to you. But it took a while for them to kind of think about this. So we just carried on. We stayed compliant. We didn't just barge into the landfill with a bucket load of AHP waste. We found a specialist service providers who would deal with the material and then take it to the sanitary part of the landfill, which Averda and the City of Cape Town own together. So we remained compliant, and that was where the material went to. So we had developed a successful township collection system, which is still continuing at a low level. And at the other part of, I'll just go to the next slide. Let me just go to the next slide. Oh, this might just go. I don't know why it's not going. Oh, there we are. Can you see that? Hello? A whole bunch of people?
Yes, we can see.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay.
Yes, we can. You.
Okay, good. You'll see a thread from the left. That is Alderman Twig. So after the we had a community report back meeting. We invited a lot of people. We tried to get as many people as we could from the municipality, and various departments did show up. And the ladies, two of the from the ECE forum in the red. So we had fortunately met Councillor Alderman Twig at a WasteCon conference, and he was interested. So we had some high-level support at that level, which we then brought into play. So clearly, we had made some good contacts with the community people, the ECD Forum, which are very strong community organization, the Longa Safety Patrol, who then shadowed the guys with the carts, and we had been to the clinic. So the clinic were behind us, environmental health on the ground. So we did quite a lot of stakeholder networking. And then we developed this, which is a Safeway Circle, to create a platform to bring them all together, because township informal waste dumps, they arise everywhere, and it's actually the responsibility of Urban Waste Cleansing Department to manage those, and they do every now and then, but it's not often enough. They continue to pile up, becoming a health hazard. They also block the toilets and the sewer systems, so that's the Department of Water and Sanitation. And then it's a health issue, which is community services and health. So those three departments are key to coming in from the municipality side. So and obviously we have been chatting with the councillor. He was there as well. He was very supportive. So this concept is now in play. I had applied to Kimberly Clark to give us a little bit of additional funding to take it forward for the next couple of months, which they have done, thankfully. So we will be, Brenda's mainly spearheading this because she's the project coordinator on the ground, manager on the ground. So we'll see how this pans out to bring community and municipality together. In such things as cleanups, we were looking at possibly cleaner community monitors that are part. So we're running it basically through our networks and our connections with the ECDs and the parents. So we'll be looking at engaging directly with those ECDs and the communities which are closest to where the worst informal dump sites are, to help alleviate the community health issues. So Binnerton Block, it is the City Council's water and sanitation division or educational unit, which we will be working directly with. So that's where we are at the moment in Langa with the engagement with the municipality and the community together, because it is a kind of it's a co-stakeholder issue which needs to be dealt with on a co-stakeholder platform. Then I want to just shift over to AHP Forum. One of the strategies, one of the main strategies, is to have municipal pilots to run to improve waste management, AHP waste management collection and removal, and also disposal. So Belinda and I had been talking, Belinda Langenhoven and I had been talking about how do we do this so I've got a relationship with a personal colleague is Margot Ledouce. She's the head of disposal at the City Council. So I saw her at a recent municipal meeting, Energy, Waste and Water Forum, and she said yes, she's keen to take it forward. So I said great. Put it on, see if you can put it onto she said she would put it onto the senior management, urban waste management managers meeting at the next one. So that's an opportunity. And I said, great. Then between Evodia, Belinda and myself, we are hoping to get that opening to table it with that senior waste management in the municipality to talk through issues. I think they need to know that EPR is on. I think they just need to address this stuff, but they just don't want to really deal with it if they don't have to. So it's mainly the pressure of advocates for alleviating the health and the inconvenience and all the other issues and the environmental impact issues that advocates and nonprofits and practitioners like ourselves who are basically waking the municipalities up to say, look, there is an issue, it's a health issue, it's an environmental issue. You've got to deal with somehow. EPR is coming through. Let's get a pilot going of how disposal, and if not collection and disposal, or at least just disposal, starts to happen. So other players can bring in their own collection systems of accumulated bulk waste to be able to dispose at a municipal landfill. So I think I'll stop there. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you. I think since we said this is a dialogue, there are a couple of questions that we will need to ask the municipalities and everyone in the room, and also spark a few ideas or thoughts or conversations. One of these questions, or the first questions that we should be asking, are any municipalities separating AHPs from their general waste? And if so, how are you managing to do so? Now, I know that we have had this question asked before, and it had appeared as if no one was really involved in the separation of AHP waste. And but I think let me not speak on behalf of the municipalities. For those that are in the room, would you please be able to indicate if a separate collection for AHP waste is being done or undertaken or thought of even? Okay, I guess there's no response there. Okay, Cherise.
I see Lance has put his hand up. I'll give him a turn first and I'll go after.
Okay, Lance.
Good morning, colleagues. Lance and Charles, I'm with Waste Management Licensing. I think the challenge, and thank you for your presentation and sort of covering some of the key aspects around the status quo. So the Western Cape is vast, just for you know. We all know that that specific fact, and each municipality has its individual or own challenges associated with waste management, amongst other political matters, etc. So this absorbent healthcare products challenge is nothing new. It's been coming on for a number of years. The project has been going on with the National Department for a while. So it's important that we also have the alignment with the National Department, and we also, us as province, have an alignment with the municipalities. And one of the key aspects that you mentioned there in touching base with Margot Ledouche is the fact that they're going to table it at the management meeting. So I go back a number of years, even further back, and you may be aware of this project. There was the yellow bag project that happened in the Tableview area at that stage. And so they sort of introduced the third recyclable bag. And there was this project, but it needs to be done. So the research and development needs to be done as such. So a trial was conducted in this private community, and they managed to establish and put systems in place. So our mind tells me, let's reuse a similar principle and not recreate the wheel. So a similar sort of collection project, and you also mentioned something very interesting about the municipality, and you didn't specify what municipality it is. It appears to be one of the bigger municipalities. However, the devil is always in the details, so let's not go there at this stage. But it's important to, so there are a number of platforms that we could actually table this. I'll integrate our Waste Management Officers Forum, where we can establish what the challenges are. And what I'd also like to put on the table is that, you know, the extended producer responsibility, recycling initiatives, all of these matters require adequate planning, adequate resources, and adequate scheduling, which is related to the planning. So going back to the Yellow Bag project, in order to do a separate collection, it means there needs to be a separate beat for collection or a vehicle that is compatible with the collection process. Okay, so many municipalities are, they either have a Rolls Royce or they have an average vehicle, okay, in terms of the best of rear end loaders and the best of those sort of trucks, or they just drive around with a tractor and a trailer. Okay, that's the sort of big gaps between the types of collection that happens in the Western Cape. And if you move even further rural to places like Wuppertal, there may only be a donkey cart that like sort of collects all of these things. So we have a vast range of collection methodologies. So it's not only about the collection, and a similar principle applies to the recyclables. It's not only about the collection, it's about what happens to that collected item as we move down the chain. Okay, whether it needs to be treated or whether it needs to be taken for final disposal. So ideally, this elephant needs to be eaten in small bits and implement methodologies that align with our national department's proposed methodologies. And yes, we can do methodologies that we can improve on and make even better. You know, we don't have to have the baseline implementation. We can only do better, but not worse. So those are my sentiments around the absorbent healthcare products. It is a major problem. And it's not only about collection, it's about, and you didn't go into all the details about all the challenges associated. So there are huge problems associated with alternative healthcare, absorbent healthcare products. So I think a pilot project that sort of dovetails with use current methodologies that have been shared in this presentation that can be expanded throughout the Western Cape. So as I mentioned earlier on, in those 30 municipalities, including the city of Cape Town, ideally we should start this process in the bigger municipality or the metro, where the bigger challenges are associated. In the rural towns, we may still be going back to nappies. Okay, there may not be the affluence associated with throwaway nappies. So before I cloud the floor, I think those are essentially my sentiments around this. Thank you for yeah.
Okay, thank you, Lance. Cherise, I'll give you a chance in a minute. I think it's also worth noting that EPR is strongly suggested in the strategy being developed by the national department. I just cannot find the actual link right now, but that was mentioned. And it is also important to note that the National Waste Management Strategy Pillar 2 actually speaks of a 10% reduction of AHP in landfill, which should have started from 2021. And this involved the development and implementation of a strategy and standards for design and disposal of AHP. And the current one, I think we're having a meeting on Thursday on the strategy. Again, it also speaks of exactly that. So yeah, thanks, Lance. I think we have quite a bit of info on that one question, but Cherise, let's carry on.
Thanks. Yes. Well, firstly, the question about waste separation. I think our data and the research we've done over the last couple of years through the One Health Forum and on an individual sort of NGO organizational level is that the waste separation is actually happening on a household basis. And people are doing that for obvious reasons. One, because of smell and contamination, etc., that people are separating their waste. So we certainly have found that a lot of the waste being dumped is mainly AHP because the problems on the ground are that the service providers on a contractor level or a subcontractor level are not collecting the AHP waste because of volumes, weight, and size. And so one of the things is that I was wondering is that, you know, all these little components that come together in terms of how people are practicing and how we can incorporate that into policy and management at a sort of waste collection level. And then the existing pilot programs that are being done, like with Hugh and other municipalities. The first thing that I sort of want to think about and ask the question is about how can you formalize this through policy or an approach to either scale up in policy or scale out to expand your reach, as Lance recommended now. Because I think there's a lot of data where things are going wrong and what sort of practices are happening in separation, all the other bits and pieces. It's about assimilating that information and then developing an approach so that we can properly actually address the issues around waste. You know, if people are not if people are separating the waste, and we're finding that AHPs are being left behind, and that certainly seems to be one of the biggest problems, are being left behind by subcontractors in rural areas because of limitations around equipment and resources available to take away this volume and weight of waste that's being discarded in these areas, but not being able to take away. I mean, on a municipal level, how is the quality management system around waste collection and waste management around the National Environmental Management Act, how is that being governed and policed and enforced and checked for that quality management system? And I think that's actually almost what the key question is that how can we get the waste collection system more operational according to our existing standards and policy on a municipal level? So that's almost a question I want to throw back. We've got the pilot. We know how people are practicing things. We know where the issues and the problems are now, but we also have standards in place and policies in place. So how do we take those policies in place and police them and checklist them and quality assure them to make it operational on the ground within the municipal systems? Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Cherise. Do you want to do the next few questions, or shall we just give a minute for anyone who wishes to answer Cherise to respond?
I think if anybody else will just respond, go for it. I've also got my responses too, but I think any other people want to come in, please do so.
Thanks, Cherise. Lance again. So the echo that I'm hearing is that in certain circumstances, in order for us to manage these processes, we can either manage by law enforcement action or we need to get an authorization. So there currently, obviously, there are no norms and standards around AHP waste, and it would be important that when these norms and standards are promulgated, that there are clear-cut matters pertaining to collection, transport, disposal, types of vehicles, occupational health and safety, as well as any other requirements, including in all legislation, we need to also have the punitive measures. So if you don't comply with these norms and standards, these are the fines associated with non-compliance. The challenge that you also have, Cherise, is that the adage of what goes for the goose is what's good for the goose is good for the gander doesn't actually work that well in municipalities because of the various structures, the various finances, the various what is prioritized in each municipality. So, as I've mentioned previously, this elephant needs to be eaten in small bits, and the achievements that are made and achieved should be shared, or the best practice should be shared. However, it's not always implementable in all the municipalities, in as much as it's within the Western Cape, and because of how the municipalities are managed, and the challenges associated, and one of the bigger challenges that we have in the Western Cape currently is the challenge of that we are running out of waste disposal, landfill airspace. Okay, in the Southern Cape, we have a nightmare going on in Knysna, Beto, George, Mossel Bay. They're looking at that regional facility there. We also have challenges in the Central Karoo, Beaufort West, Prince Albert, Oudtshoorn, all of those places, Kannaland. The West Coast are busy pulling a regional facility together where there are only two players, Matsikama and Cederberg. Currently, a landfill site like the old Vissershoek within the metropole is getting waste from other municipalities. In Swartland, the Highlands Waste Disposal Facility is pulling waste from Piketberg and some of the other smaller municipalities, even Stellenbosch. So the challenge with landfill airspace, the city of Cape Town have been challenged with a regional facility for over 25 years easily. And they've gone back to square one. So the challenge that we are having and disposal at landfill is a big challenge because we're running out. The city of Cape Town ran out of landfill airspace at Coastal Park last year. And only after many challenges associated with records of decision from Water Affairs and Sanitation were they able to dispose on a new cell. But there are stringent requirements for expanding waste disposal facilities. So taking this bulk waste to municipal waste disposal facilities are now becoming, if there's a separate, at this stage, it's sneaked into some of the general waste. And the things that come from the hospitals are treated at the, at the various treatment facilities and then disposed of at Vissershoek. We also found that during COVID, there were, and I don't mean to hog the space, let me just share with you. We found that during COVID, there were news to technologies that came in from Italy. And they bring these healthcare risk waste down to a very low log of bacterial contamination or even up to zero, which essentially means that these treated waste is also then shredded and it's brought to a general waste standard. However, because of the uncertainty with COVID, there was still the challenge and the mindset where people are saying, hold on, we are not going to accept it at our landfill site, even if it's regarded as general. So that was the challenge. So I think that, those are my sentiments about landfilling. There should be an and this is where the extended producer responsibility comes in. There needs to be absorbent healthcare projects that are more biodegradable, that don't just clog up systems for tens of years because of the types of materials that are non-biodegradable or they can't break down. So they're just adding up and making, So those are the challenges. So the manufacturing of these products need to be there's a need to be a rethink. But we are now dealing with what is the problem that we're dealing with now? How do we deal with the current problem? So there needs to be innovative treatment methodologies that need to come through that will be, easily, not easily, but that don't necessarily require all the high-level authorizations.
Yeah.
Waste management is not as simple, just take it and dump it at the landfill. So I hope that has stirred some sort of thought in people's minds around this particular question, Cherise. Thanks.
I think it has, Lance, because we have, you basically almost answered one or two of the questions that comes up later. There's only 4 questions. So you have answered 1 or 2 of them or given somewhat of a response. I see we have Cherise, then we have you, and then we have Brenda. In that order, please.
Thanks. And thanks, Hugh and Lance. I just have some really big concerns, and if I could just be a bit of a devil's advocate on this, is that So the main question is that we have AHPs in the ground. We know that there are some major challenges around collection, quality assurance, and capacity and resources to be able to implement the existing legislation that AHP falls within domestic waste collection under the municipality. And thrown in with that is now obviously you've brought in the issue of landfill space. And so we have a system in place to deal with these with AHP waste, and we've got various resources to be allocated to deal with it, but it's not being done. Now my concern is now, okay, so we don't want to take AHPs to landfill sites where underneath domestic it's supposed to go there. We don't want to deal with collecting the AHP waste because we lack resources and capacity, and obviously the quality management systems, by the sounds of it, within a municipal level. So we're not going to deal with the AHP collection, but now we want to bring technology into it. And I understand and I agree that technology is definitely a component, but I can't see any of the technologies or any alternatives being a realistic measure to deal with AHP waste unless the system that's in place is addressed. And unfortunately, that's at a municipal level and a governance level to ensure that from a national, provincial level, that at a municipal level, they are delivering that service or following that service adequately. So I appreciate, and we see that these are all these challenges, but and we all agree that alternative products like biodegradable products or reusable products, together with technologies to process AHPs, but it's going to be really difficult considering that the municipalities and government in general are really struggling to manage with their existing systems. If you want to, for example, bring technology into it, you still have to be able to collect those AHPs on the ground through your existing system and municipal policies to be able to divert it to this technological platform to process them. One of the biggest issues that we've noticed that comes through from technology, from Don Govender's presentation around technologies, is that you need the assurance of the quantity of those AHPs to come to that facility to ensure that the productivity and the efficacy, economically speaking, is going to produce proper results and help that service provider make money to be able to do it. Otherwise, it just falls apart. And that comes back again to saying, where are quality management systems in terms of the municipal waste collection and the governance thereof from provincial or national government to make sure that those systems are in place and are adequately being implemented and audited, especially at a subcontractor level, which is obviously quite often the case that rural and informal areas or backyard dwellings receive subcontracted services, and often those services, as you said, don't have the right facilities. And that's also the other reason, is like, how do we manage that chain? And I think that's actually where the important thing comes from, is to get that right before we start adding other mixes in, because those other mixes are also going to come with their own challenges. And dealing with the conversation or the topic of today's webinars is, okay, how do we facilitate the municipality to dispose of their bulk AHP products? But we can't be able to do anything unless the existing system is resolved and the proper quality management systems are in place, as well as tested piloted programs like Q's are referred to enable that system to be quality assured and implemented correctly. So, yeah, I think that's something important to consider in terms of this discussion around the disposal of waste at a municipal level.
Thank you, Cherise. You?
Okay, thanks for that, Lance and Cherise. My sense is, what I'm hearing from Lance is that it's very, very difficult actually for municipalities to take this on themselves, and they would need to subcontract it out anyway to contractors. So there's that part of it, and that subcontracting would fit very nicely with EPR. So so that's the one thing that would that's where EPR comes in. So, but I think that we need Sharice, I'm hearing that what you're wanting is for the enforcement that the municipalities must take responsibility for the material, but they don't have the resources themselves. Where they're going to get the money from to do that, they would have to then get EPR money in future to be able to put that towards the contractors that they say subcontract to for that. I think that look, the focus of AHP has really come from the rural areas up, Sharice, where you've been working K2C. You know, the issue is pathogen transferal between stock, wild game, and humans. That's a real issue. That's a health issue. In the townships where there's difficulty with collection by municipalities of general waste, that's an issue. So there are particular focus points where the pain is worst, and that needs to be focused on. So bringing that together with EPR private sector support to focus on those particular pain areas would be a primary thing for me to take on. There are technical solutions which have to be brought in, which I think which will then, if the focus is on those two areas, the rural, where the pain is, that is okay, so Cape Gas and Mustafa, they are putting in the effluent plant. The effluent plant is being redesigned to be able to take AHP. So that's where we're going with the Langa thing. We're going to be hopefully being able to take all the material, AHP material that's in the township, which is hard, to that place. But we can't. We need, funding would be needed for that. That's where the EPR comes in. So that's the sort of trajectory that would address the most painful parts of this lack of attention for AHP collection. There is an issue, though. I just want to go further to the EPR funds. What is happening is that the municipalities are finding it very difficult because of the FMEA, Municipal Finance Mesh, to actually access EPR funding to support their separation at source initiatives. So I've been talking with Polyco and so that's an issue that needs to be addressed. So in fact, I'm going to be asking Don, does he understand that the EPR funds may not even be able to go to municipalities to do separation of source? So then look at the Waste Bureau. The Waste Bureau, who's dealing with tires, is a far faster and more directed way to go to address problematic materials. So if it is classified as a problematic materials because of its health issues, then maybe that's the way to go. But I just want to come back to, okay, fine. For me, the thing is, focus on the pain points. It seems to be very difficult to enforce the municipalities to get their trucks or their infrastructure. Got to go to subcontracting. The EPR funding comes from the private sector.
23.
Sorry.
27 for the law.
Right.
And 27 for the main
Jenny,
gates.
I think
Jenny,
Jenny.
your mic is on. Sorry.
Thank you. So and the EPR funding is private manufacturers. They would like to get involved in managing how that EPR funding is done, because they want to take their own responsibility. So I think I'll leave it there. It's a complex issue. I don't think the municipalities are going to be able to do massive until EPR might say, okay, fine, we've got to deal with the diversion, 10% reduction in terms of national solid waste standards. That's when EPR comes in with the bigger facilities, technical facilities to deal with that thing. But that's the secondary thing. The first thing is to deal with the pain that's happening now in a very focused way. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, I wanted to respond to, I think it was Lance earlier, some of the remarks that he made, but some of the stuff that I wanted to comment on have been addressed already. But I just want to emphasize one point, and I think the Langer case presented today has some very useful learnings in terms of what Lance was talking about earlier, in terms of not reinventing the wheel. And one of those is that while developing these norms and standards, one of the prevention strategies, which is what Hugh presented earlier, was around that concept of that safe waste circle. And some of the key stakeholders there have shown us that community-based interventions are far more effective and more contextualized and kind of solving some of the issues that have been brought up today. For example, he was talking about law enforcement, and in the safe ways, yes, there is a place for law enforcement, but on the ground, us using a community-based law enforcement kind of stakeholder, you know, even if it's not at the level of the formal law enforcement as we know it, but it helped to address some of the issues around the illegal dumping economy, when the criminal elements of it where households lose bins and some people are reselling these bins. And it helps us in terms of kind of preventing that. So just to make sure that bins are not being stolen, and that those individuals that will be part of that system are part of the solution, or part of the problem rather, are made to be part of the solution. So those are just some of the practical things. And another thing that I just want to highlight are that while we're talking community-based solutions and interventions being the focus of this, that the requirements for accreditation for communities to also do this themselves, because they are capable, as long as there aren't many barriers. It's something that also needs attention. If we talk, for example, in terms of transportation and all of those other issues, that the requirements are made such that people from low-income communities are able to provide solutions, and that the standards are not set too high that it also becomes a barrier for them to solve these problems. Because otherwise we end up with the same solutions where we are bringing expensive trucks and money gets used and infrastructure gets used, that then is not effective in the end, especially in terms of making sure that we achieve our aim of diverting and not just merely collecting and disposing. So it's just one of the things that I think are key in terms of achieving what we're trying to do, just looking into what communities are able to do this sustainably themselves, and not necessarily rely on parachuted solutions. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we to bring that, so that we kind of strengthen community involvement, and that's what we're trying to do with the process of the safe waste circle in Langer, to just prove that communities are capable, as long as we are not putting barriers in with the strategic frameworks and policies that we're putting in place. Thank you.
Yeah, that is so true, Brenda. And the project, I think, has shown that community involvement is crucial, and it actually does contribute towards success in that area. I see your hand is still up. Is it a new hand?
No, it's an old hand. I don't know how to take it down, so just ignore it, please.
Okay, and then I see Lance.
Yeah, so thank you, Evodia. So thank you, Brenda, and so you sort of capture all of these pieces of the puzzle quite succinctly. And one of the things that that concerns me, and I'm as we just talking on open platform, is I go and I type this in the chat box. We have the plastic bag levy. Okay, we also found that there were huge challenges with Treasury and how those funds were allocated back into the stream for the actual management of those bags and, you know, those processes. I won't go into the detail. We come to the tire regulations and how tires will need to be managed. And we found huge, the word is corruption, that's so high, at such a high level that the Waste Bureau needed to step in, and they needed to move away from the reducer. There were huge court cases around the, you know, extended producer responsibility around tires. And where did it all stem from? The financial model that was put in place to improve conditions and improve the management of tires, for example. So we should caution, we should learn from these previous mistakes. And there needs to be, with any sort of system in place, then other than you know, the personal feeling of you know, achievement and improving the environment, the bottom line is everything boils down to economics. So the circular economy around these absorbent healthcare products need to be taken into account. So I'd leave it at that. I just want to share a really silly story with you all. I have 2 cats, and I usually get cat food from Pick n Pay. Okay, and Pick n Pay have this policy that they give you a rain check if they don't have the product. So the Pamper cat food was on special, which is quite expensive for 48 of these cat foods. And I then received, I told the lady, can you give me 3 boxes, please, or 3 of these items? And she wrote out the rain check, and I took it and I put it away. And then a week later, I came back to the shop and I opened up the rain check, and it was Pampers disposable nappies. So those are the challenges. Sometimes it's actually easier to get these things at all the bigger supermarkets. And the may sound like a silly story, but these things are readily available. So they are easily flooding the market at the good prices that are coming through. So if you have cats, you may even end up with nappies. But that's on the lighter side of things. Thank you, colleagues.
Okay, thank you for that, Lance. I think it's crucial that we hear from the municipalities in the room as well, just their take on how things could potentially be implemented, if at all, in their regions. And I'm going to be calling out names since no one responded to me earlier, but we do have Christo, we do have Kannaland, which I assume will be Shirley, and we do have Rodwell from Oudtshoorn. Any one of you want to potentially respond? I think it would be important to know what you foresee as a potential hindrance to collection at municipal level. Christo, I see you unmuted. You can just speak.
Yes, no, from my side, I think it's difficult from Cape Wineland side, because we only started now within the waste industry with our regional side. So everything is actually new for me and for the district. As it was indicated, it should have happened actually at the local municipalities. So it's difficult for me to comment on that one at this stage.
No problem, no problem. Kannaland and Oudtshoorn, do you have any comments? Okay, I guess not. You, would you prefer? Okay, Prof. Rini and then Dean.
I have a question to the municipalities, and I think it's linked to what Brenda was saying. It's maybe it's related to, I think, to all waste management. I want to ask, in principle, if a community like Langa say that they are willing to take responsibility to collect their waste and even separate the waste. Let's forget about necessarily separation, but collection. Is it possible that the municipalities are able to support community-based waste collection and sit with them and decide with them and say, how are you going to do it? They take control of it or they manage it and we work in collaboration. Is this a possibility in terms of financial support, in terms of infrastructural support? How would you deal with that? And that's for the municipalities to answer. And Lance, maybe you can start.
Yeah, thanks, Prof. Schenk. I think one of the challenges, and we are faced with that, and it all, as I mentioned, economics, and so it's about allocation of funds appropriately, and also getting. So if you're looking at Langa, and so then we need the City of Cape Town to make that sort of call. So in and places like our colleagues that were asked earlier on, Oudtshoorn, Kannaland, there are challenges associated with waste management. So, you know, so at this stage, in many cases, they are focusing on the key matters that are of high impact on the authorizations that require serious attention. Okay, so matters, these are sort of in my mind and what I see, it appears as though the recycling efforts, the nappies efforts are all peripheral efforts. They're focusing on the bigger, you know, the 80-20 principle sort of applies. So hence I say that, as you mentioned, Util has mentioned earlier, we need to take up the City of Cape Town and Margot Ledouche that said she'll table this at the senior management. We know that, you know, one of the areas that always create waves is making sure that the councillors create the waves. If the councillors create the political waves and the mayor's ear hears all of this, then it becomes something constructive that gets chased down, because now it becomes, you know, an area that creates more awareness. And because there's more awareness and verbalization of the challenge by the mayor or the municipal manager, then the subordinates start taking action to make sure that these higher level matters are taken up and dealt with accordingly. So sometimes the waste manager at the municipality doesn't always pull all the strings. Their strings get pulled, to put it in context. So my recommendation is that that these sort of matters get tabled at those levels, the mayor's level, the municipal manager level, and yes, this message needs to be shared, and it needs to go up via the chain from the waste manager. I think the other challenge that we sit with, and I be frank about this, that as we have our municipal officials in this meeting, they are cautious to make promises related to nappies, and then 5 years down the line, they are still sitting there, and then you go back and say, you know, Lance, you made that promise 5 years ago in that meeting with Evodia, and you are still busy biting your nails about this, whether you're going to move forward. So I think those are the challenges. If it's tabled at a high level, and that message moves through, and I'm agreeing that those norms and standards that are being sort of recommended by you, Prof, and that was mentioned previously, as I understand, that will set a precedent of how to manage this particular waste stream appropriately. And yes, the extended producer responsibility means that within the price that you pay for your Huggies or your Pampers or whatever brand you prefer, and one other thing that comes to mind is that we look at all the trade names and all the trade brands, but we forget about all the brands that come in from the foreign countries that come in much cheaper than the actual brands that we have in that can be sort of regulated, because now we need to regulate in the terms of import and export or customs and excise. So there are a number of other aspects that need to be taken into account when it comes to EPR, because I can guarantee you can get adult nappies, and not the Donald Trump kind for that they speak of so in jest for Donald Trump. So the adult, I had adult parents that needed these nappies, and I found because it's used so frequently that it's cheaper to get it from the chap that sells the Chinese brand. It doesn't have to be the special Huggies, and you'll also even find that in the marketing that the certain communities will prefer buying a certain brand because it is associated with this or it's associated with that. But at the end of the day, it serves the purpose, whether it's the brand name or not. So the point I'm making is also that we need to also take into account all these imports that are coming into our country, and how do we manage those? Because sometimes we cannot guarantee the quality of the product or we even seen stuff like synthetic eggs that you're supposed to be getting from a chicken, get synthetic eggs made in China. So that is the challenge.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Lance. Prof. Rini, I'm not sure if any of the municipalities want to respond to the question from Prof. Rini. Okay, I guess not. But I think, Prof. Rini, in the Western Cape, there are municipalities who would be willing to work hand in hand and extremely close to private individuals or companies who could manage the waste. With EPR, what has been recommended for recyclables as a whole is that perhaps we don't necessarily link up with the municipality, but we link up through the municipality to the SMMEs in that area. And that has in some ways assisted not in some ways, in quite a few ways, assisted the municipality, but through the SMMEs in their area. So there is opportunity for this waste to be picked up by, if you like, SMMEs in the area. And then that could contribute towards the diversion of this waste type. There's definitely leeway for that. Turtle, I see your hand.
Yes, just a quick response to that point. It does. Okay, so we've as part of the Safe Waste Circle initiative, we've been chatting with the partnership and sponsorship part of the urban waste management with Eric Booty. He said, talk to the Kirby guys in Dunoon. They've got a non-profit association who, it appears, I'm trying to get clarity on this, but it appears they get municipal grants to support recycling and other waste management issues in the Dunoon area. So that's possibly a way to address Prof. Rini's question about how directly on the ground the SMEs can be brought in through the municipalities to take on, for example, AHP collections. So those are the kinds of economic instruments that can be brought in. I think there's some exploration of the way that finance can be brought in at that level to to support community-based solutions, which is what Brenda alluded to as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dean, you had a comment?
Hi, Vadia, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
No, I just wanted to also mention it brought it up in the chat. Not speaking on behalf of municipalities per se, but for the past couple of years, municipalities have been able to access the MIG funding to purchase the waste management fleet. And so in this way, it has improved the ability of municipalities to service communities, particularly the poor, impoverished communities, communities that were previously unserviced, didn't get either service at all, or were getting irregular, services by the municipalities. So I think this has helped to a certain extent in improving refuse removal from communities. There has been some issues with regards to municipalities having the counterfunding, the internal finances available to add to the MIG funding in order to purchase these vehicles, like has been happening in Beaufort West recently. But yeah, I think it's an avenue that more and more municipalities are busy accessing. Some now are in the second or third round of submitting applications for new vehicles. Thanks, Evodia.
Okay, thanks, Dean. Do you want to continue with the last questions, or do you want to carry on from here?
Me, I just want to emphasize the point that Lance made about councils and politics. I think that there hasn't been like a expose of the nappy situation, but it's ripe for that. But that because I come from a media background and communications and environmental journalism, all that stuff. And there can be a strategic media exposure of the issues and the health and all of that around this, which is targeted to provide the councillors with a sort of arguments which they can then put to the mayor and all of that, and come down from that side onto urban waste management and the waste management departments. So I think that was just a very useful input from Lance that I'd like to support and possibly to take forward in the forum, which is could be a good place for it. But thank you.
Okay. Does anyone else have any other final comments they would like to make? Because I think we may have reached the end of it. I think one thing to note is going forward, Lance, Rodwell, I'll be with you in a minute. Would it be possible for us to table this also at the forum where more waste managers are? I think it's important because the strategy from DFFE, the policy and strategy even mentions they wish to recover through separation at source and collection programs, and there are extremely tight deadlines associated with that. And then they are also talking about extraction at material recovery facilities. So it's going to force municipalities to look into collection, whether we like it or not. And hence this conversation also. If we start at bulk collections, then perhaps that is where we need to be. But we need to start having this conversation with our municipalities and get them involved too. So Rodwell, you had a comment?
Yes, thank you. Good morning, Evodia. Good morning, colleagues. Just on the issue of the AHP, our status quo is that we have the black bag system and the open waste skips in the community, so it's difficult for us to control that. But at this stage, my concern is at our landfill facility, we do have the informal waste pickers, and they are keen to go or browse through the nappies because they find that people are prone to lose their jewelry in the process when they dry the babies and stuff. So that is for me at this particular stage a big concern. Thank you.
Oh, okay. That's quite an interesting take. I think then maybe before we end off, I think this should be one question that we do ask is if municipalities do accept this bulk waste material, how would they do that in order to be compliant at landfills, at their waste disposal facilities? I think if something was to be implemented by a municipality and they were to accept the collection of bulk material, how do they remain compliant? And I think, Lance, obviously that would go to you.
So compliance, the word is relative. So you can only be compliant to an authorization, okay? And also in terms of Section 28 of NEMA and duty of care. But however, speaking of the landfill will have a waste management license or a waste management permit, or it will be, so under these environmental authorizations, it needs to be written in there that whatever the requirements may be associated with it. And one of the key requirements for any sort of proper waste disposal is to do the proper trenching, doing the proper daily cover with an appropriate amount of daily cover and so forth. And also, what can be written into the, does it have to be shredded beforehand? Remember, we're talking about absorbent products. So in other words, what does it do? It sort of, whatever moisture or so whatever moisture is there, it sort of keeps that within those gels or whatever it is in the absorbent
Yes.
healthcare product. So that is the challenge, and it's not going to just disappear from there. So we have a thing that's got moisture, that has whatever liquid in there, and this needs to be managed. So do we shred it to increase the surface area so it's easily, otherwise you're putting a nappy in there that you can take out in the next 150 years, or on your 70th birthday, you could actually go and take the same nappy out that you've had when you were a year old, because it hasn't degraded. Those are the challenges that we sit with waste management, that we need, and the waste disposal facility is just one big storage area, and it becomes very toxic over the years. So we need to caution ourselves what we put in there. But so without digressing any further, it's important that they comply with the license conditions or the permit conditions associated with that facility. And one of the projects that we are busy with in the department is the waste variation project, where we keep an eye on authorizations, and we vary the conditions, just like we wrote organic waste diversion into some of the authorizations, and also things like removing a burning of waste on site. Those sort of things can be written. The management of AHPs can be written into these authorizations, but we need the legislative framework and guidance from our national department in order to do that.
Okay, I think then a linked but follow-up question then is, if industry is to manage the collection of AHPs, and bulk numbers do come into the landfill, I know it is license permitted, but would they be able to take it to the landfill? Is the landfill obliged to take it, since it is traditionally already mixed with general waste?
Yeah. So, Ivory, I go back to the period of COVID and the methodology, the new technology that was used at many of the hospitals, because they purchased these equipment at quite a great cost, but it was even less expensive than sending it for healthcare risk waste treatment at the various facilities. And also the challenge at that stage, even if somebody sneezed and coughed into a tissue, that was treated as healthcare risk waste. at the hospital, and it was then treated as hazardous and it needed to be taken away. So there was a huge backlog of things at treatment facilities, and the Newster came into. So I go back to the Newster matter. So the Department of Health wanted to dispose of this at the municipal disposal facilities in George, for example. And it was then recommended by the previous director that the prerogative lies with the municipality. So you have if you want to decide that you're going to accept this as general waste, and it can be proven that firstly it needs to be proven that it is general, the municipality need to say, okay, in order for us to stay compliant, we can accept this. So the ball will be in the municipality's court, the owner of the license holder, to make that call, Evodia.
Okay, no,
So
perfect.
at this stage, we can't force them to accept it or not accept it. And I'm agreeing that it's sort of slipping through the system in any case in the general waste.
Yes.
So yeah, okay, I'll leave it at that.
Okay, no, that's perfect, because that's exactly what I wanted to get to, because I know you and I had a conversation and that's what you told me, and that's the response I was hoping that the municipalities will receive as well, and everyone in the workshop, because that then means that you have to deal with it municipality by municipality or facility by facility, depending on where you're taking the material. Yeah, I get that part. Okay, so does anyone else have a final comment? Would you like to round up?
Thanks, Evodia. Yeah, now things have been fascinating, and I think we've got quite a long way to clarifying a lot of issues. I mean, I look forward to a possible meeting with the City Council, Cape Town City Council, to see how they will have to start looking at how, for example, with EPR, as you brought up, bulk volumes, what happens, and let's look forward to them being proactive. But I think in the meantime, working with the urban waste, with the Alderman Twigg, for example, with the media and the political side to pressure that, and also then down to the community-based organizations, working with them to be able to enable their and empower them to be able to link with the municipalities to access grants or whatever financial instruments are able to support them to take this on as well. So those are the main takeaways for me. Thanks very much. I think it's been very valuable.
Okay, and then with that said, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. Thank you for your comments and your inputs, and we will most likely see you in the next quarter. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.